Welcome to the Dusty Muffins, where menopause meets sisterhood and strengths. We're three menopause specialists coming together to laugh, share, and empower you through the wild ride of menopause and perimenopause. Whether you're curious, confused, or just looking for real talk, you're in the right place. We're here to answer your burning questions, educate, and advocate, all with a dash of humor and a lot of heart. So pull up a chair and join the conversation. Before we dive in, please remember, while we're doctors, we're not your doctors. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. We encourage you to partner with your own medical clinician to address your unique health needs. This is the Dusty Muffins. I am Dr. Rebbecca Hertel. I'm a board-certified osteopathic family medicine physician and a Menopause Society certified practitioner. I have a private telemedicine practice and I see patients in several different states.
I am Dr. Aoife O'Sullivan, a board-certified family physician and Menopause Society certified practitioner, and I see patients through my telemedicine practice here in Oregon and Washington.
I'm Dr. Christine Hart Kress, a board-certified women's health nurse practitioner and menopause certified practitioner, and I see patients via telemedicine in several states as well. Welcome back to the Dusty Muffins. If you are doing all the right things and the scale is still creeping up, or worse, your body feels unfamiliar, this episode is for you. Weight gain in menopause is one of the most distressing, misunderstood symptoms that is also the most frustrating. Women are blamed, dismissed, or told to just try harder. Today's goal for us is to separate myth from biology. We promise by the end of this episode, you'll understand why this happens, what actually helps, and why this is not a personal failure.
We're breaking this up into kind of three sections. We're looking at it from three different angles. And the first one is why menopause changes your weight, even if you don't change anything. A quick show of hands. For who is weight loss one of the main issues their patients complain of?
I was going to say me.
Yes, me too.
And us. How many of us? It was at one point, it was like legitimately, it was 20 pounds when I first started going through the transition.
Yeah, actually, the number I hear the most often from my patients is 30 pounds. 30 pounds. I've gained 30 pounds in the last few years.
I know.
Which is terrifying, isn't it? Because every time, and we're speaking from personal experience, every time you get on the scales, it's higher than the last time. Yeah. And you're like, where does this stop? When I'm 200 pounds, 300 pounds, like, what makes it stop?
I actually, I had lost 50 pounds back in 2023 and had successfully kept that off until November of 2024. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm still eating the way I was. I'm still exercising the way I was. And the weight is just, there's like no tomorrow of what is happening here. And it just won't come off. And I'm like, that must be when I was making that starting to make that late perimenopause transition. And it has just been one frustrating day after another. And I, still don't even understand it because my patients are so successful and I'm so happy for them and so jealous.
It is hard because I agree too. Like, there was a point I remember saying to my husband, like, I cannot eat any cleaner and I physically cannot exercise anymore. Like, I just don't get it. Like, my face was puffy and I could see it like on old videos. It was just like this puffy person. It's really difficult, especially when you're thinking, all of those things that they tell you to do, right? Like, okay, we'll eat cleaner and eat better. And you're like, and all my macros are like on point. And, so there's something else when these changes start to happen that, we're seeing.
And you really do start to believe it when you see somebody like you. I'm not good. I'm a night owl. I stay up too late. And when you see someone like you, Rebbecca, who does their best with all their lifestyle pillars, really pays attention to what they eat, how much they eat, when they eat, really works on muscle strength training, cardio, and you're the same, Christine, covers all your bases and still has issues. Really gives you a lot of empathy for your patients then, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because we're all in it together. And it's not that I never believed anybody because I always believed them. I just didn't appreciate it until it happened to me.
It's like perimenopause. Just like Perry, right? I
Yeah.
think once we all, I mean, which is why we're all here now. Like, really, right? Like, we went through it too, and you're just like, oh my, okay, all
I
right, this is,
know.
yeah.
So underlying the main problem is we are losing our hormones.
Want the Dusty Muffins at your next event? We do panels, live podcasts, and talks that bring the heat, literally. Corporate, see me, or retreats, we've got you. So hit us up at the Dusty Muffins 333 at gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at the Dusty Muffins.
So one of the first thing that drops from our early 20s is our testosterone, which just gradually decreases over the years, like it does in most men. Then we start to lose our progesterone, which for a lot of us affects our sleep. And once your sleep goes, I feel like the sleep is the center of everything. Once your sleep goes,
Sure.
all bets are off.
Yeah,
You're
'cause
screwed.
that changes cortisol, right? I
Hmm.
mean, all of those things that we're supposed to be doing to then relax us, right? That progesterone relaxes us so we can sleep. And now if you're like amped up and you can't relax, then those cortisol spikes get all wonky. And, I think our ability to have even produce melatonin correctly, all of those things get,
Yes.
you know, in this like fluctuation.
Yes, melatonin is something we forget about. And when you look at a graph of melatonin over our lifetime, it drops dramatically throughout
Mhm.
perimenopause as well. So the other thing about that progesterone dropping is a lot of women develop then anxiety. And so your sympathetic system is kicked into overdrive. And you do get a lot of symptoms because of that too, difficulty sleeping and anxiety during the day. And then you start to lose your estrogen as well. There's this big drop across perimenopause where your estrogen basically falls off a cliff, not like the other ones that kind of decline more gently. Estrogen is so important for so many processes in our bodies. Even our mitochondria, like the powerhouse of
Mhm.
each cell in our body, depends on estrogen to function properly. And one of the things that estrogen has a lot of control over is where we deposit our fat and how our fat functions. Because it's not just a lump of fat that sits there and does nothing, it's really metabolically active, isn't
Mhm.
it?
Mhm.
And it pumps out dangerous stuff like our estrone. Not that estrone is completely dangerous, but it's one of the more inflammatory types of estrogen.
Right. And I think too, we forget just those fluctuations, like we were saying in this perimenopause state too, those high estrogen levels that we can get during, whether you're starting to have loop cycles or whatever that is. I mean, that's also makes you retain so much fluid and you see those changes too. So, not only are you getting this adipose tissue redistribution, but you're also, that puffy feeling, retaining more fluid. And, so again, that's going to make your scale look a little bit
Mm.
differently. And sometimes I'll tell my patients, where were you in your cycle or did you have a cycle? Was this when you were ovulating? Did you
Hmm.
find yourself to be more puffy? Your rings weren't fitting, your feet, were swollen.
Yeah, there was an article that came out 2 weeks ago in the Journal of Clinical Medicine that looked at the impact of the menopausal transition on body composition and abdominal fat redistribution, which I found the
Mhm.
article to be really interesting and very informative. But just one of the things, that they did, in that kind of pathophysiology piece of it is that decline in the circulating estrogen, whether due to menopause or if you have your ovaries removed, are linked to increased risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. And that deficiency definitely increased fat tissue mass and reduced your lean tissue mass. And so that fat accumulation is definitely, not in our minds. And it's not from the thing, it's not because we're not doing the right things. It's because that is, part of the role of estrogen is to help
Mhm.
us with that fat distribution.
And there's people who, when they gain fat, they put it on their arms, they put it on their thighs, they put it on their bottom and their legs, and they have this narrow torso. And, that is a very healthy way to be, really, to deposit your fat there. And when you go through menopause, what a lot of women will find is it shifts completely and it
Mhm.
starts to gather around the waist and the midline. And that's the dangerous area. That's the dangerous type of fat. Really metabolically active, pumping out cortisol type hormones and estrone,
Mhm.
which in itself causes inflammation, right? It also pumps out inflammatory cytokines. So really, really dangerous, and starts to infiltrate our organs too, like our liver. We see a lot of fat deposition in perimenopause, don't we? Fatty liver and insulin sensitivities. So usually we eat something, our pancreas picks up on that fact, it pumps out insulin, and the insulin gathers up all the sugar and delivers it to our muscles, which then accept it and burn it as fuel. And during perimenopause, our muscles and our tissues become more resistant to the insulin. So instead of just ringing the doorbell once, it's like ringing and ringing and ringing, and there's no answer, and they can't get the sugar into the tissues. And so you've got this buildup of insulin and sugar now in your bloodstream, which ain't good for your blood vessels.
Right. And as a natural part of that transition, we see a direct decline in just the muscle. And without muscle, you're not going to have metabolism. And so the loss of muscle, you'll hear sarcopenia, also lowers your resting metabolic rate, making it much more difficult to maintain your weight, even if your diet remains unchanged.
Yeah.
And I think too, one thing, we have this on top of aging. So, I think it's also, I don't want people to listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, perimenopause and menopause. This is, I'm completely doomed. Part of this is perimenopause and menopause on top of just aging in general and what we see, right?
Yeah.
In our aging population, that sarcopenia also happens as we're aging, and our insulin sensitivity also can occur as we're aging. But in women, it can occur even quicker because of that perimenopause transition and that decline and shifts in estrogen. And so, you hear us, all three of us all the time, really talk about, resistance training, trying to maintain adequate protein to really slow that rate down at which you are losing muscle over time. And if no one has ever, has not ever tried a glucose meter, I will tell you again, I would have never appreciated the way that my A1C and the way my sugar was spiking until I tried one on. And it was a game changer because, again, I felt like I've always ate on point and exercise on point. And then I put that thing on, and it was really scary at first because to watch your sugar go up like that and like know what it's doing to your body, yeah, it was an eye opener. So you can get those off Amazon, if anyone's interested in what
I think
happens.
that data, Rebecca, is just so important for people because, a lot of times what I see with my patients that are using the CGMs is, and this is what I tell them, you think that what you're doing is healthy. And it probably is more
Yep.
healthy than your other alternatives. The big famous one is, people switch to oat milk and almond milk instead of heavy creamer or the sugary type creamers. And then they put a CGM on and their blood sugar spikes as soon as they have their oat milk latte. And so the
Mm-hmm.
things that your body was able to tolerate before may not be the things that you now can tolerate because of that insulin resistance and decreased estrogen. And that even includes exercise. Like when I do too much HIIT training, when I wear that monitor, I spike. My blood sugar spikes. And every time your blood sugar spikes, you're storing that as fat. So that CGM, it's $99, Stello.com, it's on Amazon, is really, I think, a good way to check, can my body tolerate the things that I'm doing that are healthy? And they may be healthy, but they just may not be healthy for your body because not
Right.
all people can tolerate the same carb or the same vegetables or even the same protein.
And I think we like to think of it like, you're fine tuning as you're aging, right? Like we don't feed our babies breast milk or formula forever, right? We transition them to whole, and we also don't feed them whole milk necessarily forever. So I think sometimes if we just like bring it back to those basics, like what we have to do for our body as we're aging is going to be different, right? And
Yeah.
just instead of just saying, well, I could eat that when I was 20. Well, yeah, your 20-year-old body just needed different things or could tolerate different things. And that's why I think, maybe a different podcast for us to talk about just the new food pyramid I was like ecstatic about. But, we our bodies just need different things as we're aging, and that's okay. And I think sometimes if we just think about it that way and accept it that way, it's like, listen, we don't eat like we were toddlers. We don't eat like we were teenagers or even young adults. We have to give our bodies nutrition in different ways as we're aging.
And this is not a sponsored podcast, but we are all big believers in the continuous glucose monitor. Every single patient I have used that in has said it is given them so much information that has helped them, because you can do so many experiments. You can eat something that you love. Say you love a bagel in the morning and you eat it and you see that big glucose spike. And then the next day you have a half a bagel, or you have your bagel, but you add in some protein in there, more protein. And you see then you don't get as much of a spike. And then you have the same thing the next day and you do a 10-minute walk afterwards and you get even less of a spike. And so it's just such amazing data that we haven't really had before. We don't have great information, honestly, on what your glucose should be when you're not diabetic. We have good data when you're diabetic, what we want your glucose to be, but it's less concrete when we're looking at people's sugar. So don't get too hung up on numbers, but look at the patterns, which are so helpful.
You should do it with your spouse too, because sometimes, right? Like, when my spouse and I did it together, it was completely different. His didn't budge. And I'm like, really? I eat so much better than you.
Well, Dave and I are doing it too, and his glucose spikes much higher than mine and runs higher than mine, but I'm really insulin resistant. So mine's not going up so high because I've got so much insulin circulating in my bloodstream. So it's way worse than Dave's, who goes up higher, So it's it's more complicated than it looks.
Even be helpful too. Like for me, red wine does not spike my blood sugar. I was like,
I meant to check that last night, Christine. I thought about having a glass of wine. And I was like, then I could see what it does to my blood
sugar. I was very happy. I trialed that a few times. Of course, I don't sleep, but that's whatever trade-off. But I was like, all right, red wine does not make me spike. I can stay on that. And my husband, I was really surprised when I put that on him, what a motivator it was for him. And I know many people, sort of struggling getting their husbands to make life changes because they're hard. But, about the muscle piece of it, right? Like my husband just had to cut out one less sandwich a week, and he dropped 20 pounds and, blood sugar started to normalize. I was like, man, having all that muscle, that's, is so important.
Yeah, it really is.
We put ours on 2 weeks ago, and Dave, we changed it last night, has started getting up in the mornings again to exercise, and told me last night he's doing dry February, which is a real pain in the arse. But, speaking of the wine, like if I have a glass of beer, my sugar goes sky high, way higher than if I have a big meal or anything, So, okay, I'll have to experiment with the wine because I would like a glass of wine every so often,
Absolutely.
And I think our takeaway from that first section was, if your body feels different, it genuinely is because it is different. And these are changes that are so out of our control. And what we have to learn from this is a new stage of life for us. The exercises that worked so well for us before do not work so well. If you weren't a great eater beforehand, you're not going to get away with it anymore. If you were a great eater beforehand, you still are probably going to need to make further changes. And we don't mean eat less. We're probably saying eat more, like eat more protein, eat more healthy fats, because those are the things that are going to keep your glucose low and help you build muscle. And I think our overall message from this is muscle is the key, isn't it?
Muscle and protein. So many people, even on GLPs, and they're like, I'm not losing any weight. And I'm like, you're restricting, you're calorie restricting.
You're not
it's like turning off that diet mentality, especially, Gen X. We grew up dieting.
Dieting and jazzercise.
Oh my God. Exactly. So much diet.
Couple key points for the next section is I do like this way. We kind of talked a little bit about this. Why eat less, move more stops working. And some of the points that I think we're going to go through, and I think we did hit on a few of these. Some of the issue is menopause symptoms in and of itself, right? So you're sleeping worse, you are tired, and so then you're not moving. Mood is changing, so then you are maybe emotional eating or you're not working out. Like you typically would. And so then that kind of affects like your whole ordeal, right? Like you're not going to get up, you're not going to work out, you are tired. So, yeah, and you're not sleeping well. So you're tired. So you're not going to get up because you needed to sleep in.
Yeah.
And then maybe, then you're depressed about that. So then you're just eating because you're just like, screw it, I'm just going to eat what I want because it's not working anyway. So,
Yeah.
what do you, and then I do see this a lot, right? Because when we start women oftentimes on hormone therapy, all of a sudden they're sleeping better. So then they have that, motivation to then get up in the morning and go do their workouts, or they are not flashing at night. So they are sleeping better. And so then they're able to get up and go do the things that they want to do. And then they may feel some of that appetite suppression now that their estrogen levels are a little less fluctuant.
Yeah.
Depending, I think, on what part of perimenopause you're into, then they are not stress eating or emotional eating. What do you girls think about that?
Not all gifts come in boxes. Some change how you feel in your body. Join us this March at the Oregon coast for a menopause retreat unlike anything else. Intimate, powerful, and deeply restorative. Dr. Vonda Wright is our keynote speaker, and we have a whole host of incredible speakers lined up. Tickets are $4.99 right now and climbing. Don't miss this. Go to empirecollective.com and get your ticket now. Oh God, I had something to say there and it went straight out of my head.
That Terry Siv.
What was I going to say? Because it was really good.
So good.
It was.
So good. Can't remember.
I mean, I do think that, taking care of yourself and taking care of your stress level is so, so, so important, because otherwise your cortisol is going to be super, super, super high. And, I think that, forming habits, finding accountability is really important, because if you don't put in the work, you're not going to feel it necessarily today. Maybe you have to go buy a new wardrobe and maybe you're like, that's okay. That's a good trade-off because I don't want to get up. But really it's, what are you doing now to set yourself up to not be in that nursing home in your 70s and not struggle with mobility? And I think, habits are hard, one at a time. And, it takes 21 days to put a habit together.
Do you know what else really comes to the fore in the menopause transition is any previous or childhood trauma really comes to the fore, doesn't it? And so now you are like probably at the peak of your career or getting there. You may have children you're taking care of. You may have parents you're taking care of. And then all this other shit bubbles to the surface that you have that is causing stress as well. And one thing you notice in medicine is that it is impossible to lose weight if your cortisol or your insulin is high. You can take a really skinny person and start them on insulin for their diabetes and they'll gain 20 pounds over the next 2 weeks. So they're best buddies. They travel together. So if your cortisol is high, you can bet your bottom dollar your insulin is high as well. So one of the key points really is you have to focus on stress management, whatever that means for you.
And I tell patients too, high cortisol doesn't mean that it's abnormally high and we're looking at other types of diseases, right? I mean, it can be on the higher end and that it's higher than it should be. And it's not doing like it's normal waves of up and down. And of course, if you're keeping it on because you're scrolling late at night and you're not getting enough sleep and all this blue light is on, and that doesn't help, it either. And I think that so definitely, getting those stress levels on point, the sleep on point, and then going back to like being at work doesn't equal working out. I don't know how many people tell me that their job, I work. I'm like, well, that's
neat.
great. Yes, exactly. Every single day, you should have some type of movement outside of your normal workout, outside of your, so like myself personally, I aim to get so many steps a day. That's outside of my normal workout.
That's your size.
You got it. Because part of that is also aging too, those decrease in that, in that metabolism, because we are still losing muscle as much as we try to keep it, but we can decrease again that rate at which that occurs by maximizing our protein intake, maximizing our resistance training, but you have to move every day. So no, our younger kiddos can go off and do all these things because they are like, their metabolisms are different than ours are. So
Where?
being at school is probably enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
For us being at work, I'm like, that's a big no. Try again.
Girls, I remembered what I was going to say there. I had to type it into my phone. Because it's come into my head about 4 times. What I
Okay,
wanted
good.
to say was that I see so many patients who come to me and, well, the thing is, in family medicine, it is drummed into us that no matter what the person comes in complaining of, you start with lifestyle changes. And I feel like menopause is different because I see so many patients who cannot get up off the couch. Their mood is so low. Their energy is so low. Their body aches so much. I can tell them to get up and exercise till the cows come home, and they can't do it. They can't do it. So if someone is able to start on hormone replacement, even for a few weeks, that can totally change the game, can't it?
Right. Yeah, you can always stop it if you don't like it,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
usually in like with my, patient visits. I don't talk a whole lot about nutrition and exercise at that first visit because their
Yes.
readiness is not going
They're
to be there
right.
because
They're
we got to fix.
miserable, right?
The
Yeah.
other piece of this, which I have found fascinating the more I've learned, is about the gut microbiome. And,
Yes.
the estrobolone is that collection of microbes in the gut that helps you process your hormones. And what we see is when estrogen is low, that your gut microbiome also changes. And there are probiotics specifically that we are looking for in your gut that help you make that GLP, that glucagon like peptide, which is that hormone in your stomach that helps you control weight, cravings. And many people, when I'm doing gut testing, are low in the GLP 1 activator probiotic, Akkermansia. Now, you shouldn't go take Akkermansia thinking it's going to help you lose weight because if you have
Right.
plenty, there is something as too much of a good thing, but there's also short chain fatty acid producers like propionate, which is often we will see that's a GLP-1 activator also be low. And so the other piece, that two other things that we see with the gut in menopause, one of which is your neurotransmitters. So I learned this week that I didn't realize that those neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin are made in the gut, and I often will see them low. So gut testing isn't just for those GI disturbances, but also if you have, any worsening of mood, but also where it's helpful to check gut is if you're feeling like your hormones aren't working and you need more and more and more hormone, it often is your microbiome being out of sorts. And so fixing that gut is the one key, that thing that can help you be more successful with your dialed in hormones.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you go to see someone about your gut and you got gut testing, and you can really fix that, especially with a lot of supplements. But overall, if you weren't to see anybody at all, the key is to eat more fruits and vegetables and fiber and get a good probiotic and eat prebiotic foods too, right? Like kimchi, and what else is a good prebiotic?
Kefir.
Yeah.
But I,
Yeah,
I always
exactly.
tell everybody, check your gut. Do not take a random probiotic because you could be
Yeah.
causing more harm. And that's from
Right.
all these gut
Yeah.
testings that I'm seeing. I'm like,
Yeah.
dang, often people pick up a random probiotic and it doesn't actually, like, there was nothing wrong with those pieces, but then there were these
Right.
deficits. So I'm a big fan of the gut test. And no, GI doesn't do that for you. You have to find someone that does gut testing,
Yeah.
which is not covered by insurance, but is affordable.
I mean, something that really blew my mind a few years ago was when they started talking about how even rheumatoid arthritis is caused by, changes in your gut microbiome. I mean, that was crazy. My whole training, all my 30 years in medicine, nothing ever
No one.
suggested that. So just everything comes back to the gut and muscle.
Brain and the
Yeah.
gut and the
And
brain.
the brain.
Yep. I know, it's crazy.
And the brain.
So See, takeaway is
Yeah.
not about doing more, but doing things differently.
Yeah,
Christine,
what are we doing next here? So after you check your gut, which I believe everybody should do, it's always my answer. I'm not losing
agreed.
weight, not to my patients, to my friends. I'm
Let's
like,
check
time to
your
check
gut.
your gut. But yeah, let's kind of talk about hormones and medications. And I think the big thing for people to realize is that using these medications is not the easy way out. Like I hear people
No.
feeling like shame for being on a
Yes.
GLP. It's just a tool. It's part of what we do.
Yes.
And if you don't do all the lifestyle, then all you're going to do is be skinny fat or get Ozempic face. So,
Right. There are ways that are shortcuts. I mean, which none of us endorse here. If you're doing weight loss, you need to be doing it with
yes.
someone who knows what they're doing. They are not allowing you. Are you working with someone? You're not just doing a telemedicine, like check in with someone who's not there asynchronously. Like you are doing all the things, the protein, the slow weight loss, all the things that you're supposed to. I'm a big advocate of that. I get really on a soapbox when, yeah, you can get those medications anywhere. We all know that. But if you're to truly understand and do it correctly, you need a clinician hand in hand with you
Yeah,
to do
there's
it
been a
right.
lot of people that
I'm done.
look terrible and their
Oh,
hair is falling out, and it's
terrible.
because you're losing.
They have no muscle. They're
Right,
going to
you're
break.
losing too fast. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it just, we need to be checking things like your skeletal muscle mass and your percent
Yeah.
body fat because no longer is it about a number on the scale. Really, your skeletal muscle mass, that you're maintaining muscle mass, which is going to help you lose more weight, and that your body fat and your visceral fat are decreasing. And so, it just makes me crazy. And then, there's all this. GLP-1s cause hair loss. Yeah, because you're losing too rapidly.
Yes. And not enough
Correct.
nutrition, right?
Right.
Both of those things. And now, yes, may you still have some telogen effluvium because you're losing weight, even if you do it right? Yes. And your clinician should be telling you that this could happen just because you are losing weight. But if that's happened, I mean, when I just see it all the time and it's so frustrating,
And they're just
you
gonna gain it
know?
all back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think an important point to make as well is that how we see weight gain and obesity now in medicine is very different to how we used to see it. And we see it now as, and I hate to use the word disease, but we look on it as a chronic disease. So we look on it like high blood pressure, like cholesterol, like having rheumatoid arthritis. And, if we got your rheumatoid arthritis under control, you feel well, you're not having fevers, your joints aren't swollen and aching. Would we stop your medication? No, of course we wouldn't, because all your symptoms would come back. So we look on it now as very much a chronic illness. And there are lots of people who can lose the weight, and because they've changed so many of their lifestyle factors, they've gained way more muscle, they've gotten into a routine, they know now from watching their glucose when to eat, what to eat, how to do it properly. They are able to taper off that medication and come off. So that's totally possible. But in general, I think in medicine now, we look on obesity as a chronic disease, which I think is a much better way to look at it. We were very ignorant before this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many things, your environment, how you were raised, what the dinner table was
Trauma.
like for you. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of patients don't even know that what they're eating, or were eating was not high in protein and not enough protein.
And so many people in America in particular live in food deserts and are brought up on ultra processed foods. And
Mhm.
ultra processed foods, even if you're just on them for a few weeks, are going to pack on the pounds. They totally change your hormones internally. So, and a lot of people were brought up with that from a very early age. That's not your fault. This is how your body has adapted and how it reacts. So, we'd love to take away that shame that is so often associated with carrying extra weight.
Think,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
other thing that I think a lot of women become frustrated when they're on the medications is, their progress as compared to other friends. And so I
Yeah.
think two things are important. Zero 0.5 to up to 10% of their body weight per week is expected. is considered a safe range. Plateaus do happen, but while the scale may not be moving, your visceral fat is maybe decreasing, and which is what we're really after. You got to let the scale go, I think, in menopause, because I see a lot of people who are like, my clothes feel better, I look better, my belly fat is gone, I may be maybe 5 pounds heavier, but I'm more lean, I'm more toned. And for my patients, I don't increase their GLP until they have 4 weeks of no weight loss. 99% of the time when I start to dive into it, not enough fiber, not enough protein, not enough water, not enough sleep. Not because they're waking up, but because they're not putting themselves to bed.
And not enough patience.
Good point.
That's a big one with those types. Weight loss it's a marathon, not a sprint, is usually what I tell my patients.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. Girls, do you find that your patients will say, like, my main issue is weight gain? Like, I do have all these other symptoms, but I really need to lose this weight. And I have to be very clear with them. Starting on hormone therapy in no way means that you will lose weight. I do say to them, when I start you on hormone therapy, I'm hoping you will get your sleep back. And when you get your sleep back, you'll get your energy back, and you'll be able to get off the couch, and you'll be able to build muscle and be more active and get more steps during the day. And that is going to have an effect on your weight. But you don't just stick a patch on and get on the scales a few days later and have lost weight. I mean, it's weight. We consider hormone therapy weight neutral. And in some women, they will come back and say, I gained 5 pounds. That is fluid, right?
Yep.
Hormone therapy doesn't make you gain fat. So that's really important for people to know. It helps your weight in a roundabout way as opposed to having a direct effect on it.
All right. Bring it home, ladies.
Home girls.
So menopause weight changes, as we were talking about, those are predictable, they are physiologic, and they are treatable. One size fits all advice fails midlife women and anybody. I'll extrapolate to anyone. No one's one size fits all. And the goal isn't thinness. It's health, it's strength, and it's certainly quality of life. And if you've been blaming yourself, let's be clear. This was never about willpower. It was about hormones, muscle, sleep, stress, and a medical system that didn't prepare you. So if you enjoyed this, make sure that you share this episode with someone struggling, whether silently or not. Stop apologizing for your body and start demanding better care. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Instagram, and we will see you next time.